Yes. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I am a bereavement specialist. And hi, Susan, it's been a while.
Hi, Lisa. Well, you're out flying around the country doing your thing, and I'm glad you had a very good time. We talked about that before the video today. And hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Susan Capurso, and I'm a legacy specialist and end-of-life doula. And I'm happy today to be here. We're talking about a special holiday that's coming up, Father's Day. Father's Day is approaching, and today's video touches on something deeply personal that many of us face or will face one day, our relationship with our fathers, our dads. So, Lisa and I today are touching on both during a dad's final chapter in life, before end of life, and then we're going to touch on a little bit after they've passed. So, whether your relationship with them has been a source of strength or struggle, because it could be either or, we're hoping that our video today offers you a little bit of guidance, comfort, and some practical steps to help you navigate these profound moments in life. So, Lisa, again, thank you for coming back from vacation and joining me today. Let's talk a little bit about how we all can find some healing, closure, and even celebration during these challenging transitions in our life, right?
Okay. Let me just start because I always share personal. So let me just start by saying that I had the most amazing father. He was only part of my life for 30 years. I did not know that he would die on a vacation. He was 57. He had a massive coronary in a hotel. I got a phone call from Toronto and it was life-changing. I was 30 and he was 57. So, sudden, couldn't prepare for it, didn't know. And all that time, those 30 years had been pretty incredible. I mean, the only time I think that he had real challenges was when I was a teenager and he was trying to figure out what mood I was in. But, he always said, go ask your mother. So, we were close. I was an only child. He, didn't have a wife for 2 years when I was little, which I have mentioned before. And he got a new wife. And when he did, he was looking for somebody who'd also be a mother for me. So he made a good choice. And throughout the years, it was wonderful. We went on trips together. I have incredible memories. But that time when he died was life-changing for me. I have to tell you that you look at things that happen like that and you decide, all right, so how is this going to affect my life? And I will share with you that the decisions I make were absolutely because of what had happened to him. So because of a sudden death like that, I decided to change my entire life. I've been working for a mental health center. I gave them 6 months notice, which is crazy. And I told them, I need you to find somebody to replace me. I will train them. I'll do whatever you need, but I've decided that I'm not going to work for you anymore. I talked to my husband and I told him that I really wanted to have a child. We had waited a long time. We had been together for many years. And for me, the life situation meant that I really needed a child to know that life could go on. It was just such a hard time. So for those 6 months, I mourned and cried a lot and went through pictures and tried to take care of my mom, who was now alone. So that was a very tumultuous time for me. And I did get pregnant. My daughter is named after my biological father and my biological mother. And she was born a year and something later. Um, and things, come up. So basically, that's my father's story. I will tell you that the person who now jumped in to be my father was his younger brother. So my uncle for the next 40 years, and he died last year, was really my father's substitute. He talked to me. We could talk about anything. He was wonderful. And I'm very grateful that I had now a new father substitute. So that's my story with those two
Thank you for
fathers.
sharing that story because a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today are relationships with our fathers. whether they're still here on this earth or not, and healthy, happy relationships versus relationships that are struggling a little bit. So we wanted to open that with a little bit of a trauma circumstance. You know, the trauma that I had, and the reason I became an end of life doula was because of my children's father. And that was my husband, who was still married at the time. And it was a trauma. It was a trauma. He got the flu, and this was well before COVID. It had nothing to do with COVID. And who dies of the flu? Well, those rare people in between, and he was one of them. So looking at my kids' perspective, boy, did it rock their world. It rocked my world. But I was grieving in a little bit different way than they were with their dad. They were grieving more like you were, Lisa. So when we talk about being traumatized, yes, that is definitely part of it. So let's talk a little bit about when your father's still here. You know, you have a loving relationship with him, um, but he's at the end of life. What are some of the strategies or tools that you can bring into the situation to help you come full circle, to help him come full circle, to celebrate that love that you've shared and that appreciation and that gratitude that you've had for him your whole life? So let's start with some of that, Lisa. And you know, spending quality time, spending as much quality time as you can, especially if your dad has that terminal diagnosis. We're looking at a small window here, right?
So yeah, and so terminal diagnosis. So let's look at my husband who had pancreatic cancer, and for 15 months, my children were trying to adjust to him dying. And during that time, we did a lot of memories, photo albums and videos. And I did, when he was able to know what he was saying, I did two books, one for my daughter, one for my son, and it was I Remember Dad. And so when he was lucid, I would ask him a question about his childhood, about, things that he remembered. And they were small little books, but that's what we did during that time period.
And
Lot.
that's beautiful. And that's one of the things that you should be doing, spending quality time, but creating meaningful moments without overwhelming your dad or your children's dad, to do it gently. Don't force feed anything because this is a tough time for everybody, right? So we don't want to do that. And by the way, those books, there are a ton of them now. Whether you go to a bookstore on Amazon, you can find books like that. And even if you don't fill in the book itself, because my first book, Remember Me, the Story of My Life, is a book filled with prompts and lines on the page. Even if you don't fill in the lines on your page, get a journal, okay? But you'll have the questions, you'll have the prompts, and that can start conversation. If your husband or your children's father or your father is still able to write, try and encourage some writing. Okay, it's so powerful, the effects that a person's handwriting can have on you for many, many, many years. It's 11 years this year for my husband. And just the other day, I pulled out a folder with a piece of paper with some of his writing on the front of the folder and his signature and date of birth. And it makes the hair on my neck stand
Yeah.
because it feels like he's here.
Yeah.
That's him. That writing is his identity.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. And the other thing is, let me just throw in, because I may forget later on, a recorder. Go pick yourself up a $40 recorder on Amazon or Staples or whatever, and just sit and have conversation because those conversations they're going to be so valuable to you later on. So it's really important, the power of voice.
Yeah, the voice is amazing. People keep their spouses' voices on their machines and everything just to hear the voice again. But honestly, to see videos and to see that person right in front of you like that, that's priceless. That's just so amazing. It's
And there
incredible.
may be situations where your person doesn't want to be on video.
Yeah.
Maybe they're very sick and they're not looking good or feeling good. So it might help with the recording or the writing,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So another thing is, expressing gratitude. And that's really important because that's healing ahead of time for you and for them, helping them come full circle in life, articulating what their presence in your life has meant to you. We don't often have that open and honest communication. And for the families and the relationships that have that, you're really, really lucky. Okay, not everybody has that, but now it's more important than ever because later on you'll feel so good in your heart knowing, wow, we had that conversation, we had that talk, and even though he loved me, this happened in life, but he didn't mean it that way. And conversation and communication can just become so loving, especially if you've had a great relationship your whole life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Talk about memories. Bring
Yep.
up memories, and that's where the recorder comes in if you don't want to sit and write things down, and laugh a little bit. Just bring those memories up and be able to share them with your children and grandchildren and do as much of that as you can. Again, don't be forceful. You know, Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Um, what else, Lisa? So be careful if you're a caregiver,
Sure.
right? You
Sure.
got to balance that
Sure.
with saying goodbye to your loved one
Sure.
and being that caregiver at the same
So,
time.
so here's a situation. So my husband is dying, and my daughter had been with somebody for a couple months, and she came with him and asked for his blessing. Um, that's really an interesting situation because he didn't really know him or anything, and he didn't want to say the wrong thing. And he said to her, "Whatever makes you happy," which is the best answer, you know. And she did get engaged, and I made that party only a year after he died, and then I had the wedding only a year and a half after he died. So those poignant moments, um, questions and things that might be important, maybe his opinion about things, um, father's advice about, your life.
But this is so important,
It
Lisa, and
is.
and that was a really good example that you brought up because no matter how sick a person is at the end of life, they still need their dignity and they need
Right.
their respect. And to really include them in all kinds of decisions, even the end of life decisions. You want to talk about those things, but to include them in everyday situations too,
Yeah.
not to uninclude them because, oh, they're sick and we don't want to burden them with that.
Yes.
They don't want
Yes.
that.
That's right.
You do.
That's right.
So it's
So
not really a
important.
good.
So important. And
Now
that
what? Let's go ahead,
so
finish your note.
pre-need, I mean, it is really important to talk about their wishes and to always
Mm,
respect their wishes. And we did talk about it,
right.
and I did exactly what we had discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we have a whole video on that. You could take a look for that.
we did.
I want to talk a little bit about strained relationships. Not everybody has a good, loving, I'm grateful that you were in my life all these years kind of relationship.
Right.
Okay. But now it's the end of father's life. And how do you balance that? How do you handle that? You want to be there, you want to go there, and you want to say something, but maybe you're fearful, maybe you're angry, maybe you haven't forgiven things that have happened in the past, and that's huge. That
It's huge.
happens to a lot of people and there's so much resentment between mothers and their children or fathers and their children. So there are a few things that you can just keep in the back of your mind that you may try, but try to keep in mind that complete reconciliation between the two of you might not happen, so to be careful with your expectations. um, Focus on the peace in the present moment. Focus on the present moment instead of past so much, or having perfect closure right now, because that resolve may not happen, right?
Sure.
Um, and create boundaries, because the situation can get loud with somebody, especially if you've been butting heads your entire life. Why would that stop now?
Sure.
So if you go in understanding these things, it might be a little bit easier for you. What are your feelings on that, Lisa?
It's hard for me to relate. I can't relate to a
Yeah,
father problem. I can relate to a grandmother problem, but the issue
yeah,
is really what you said. Keep your expectations realistic because it's only going to hurt everybody, especially yourself, if you believe that everything now is wiped clean and everything's fine now because it's at the end. That's not the way it is. So,
yeah. I mean, do you want forgiveness from them, or do you need it from them, or do they need it from you? So think about that going into this. Try and go into your time with them, no matter how limited, even if it's for a little bit, without reopening those old wounds.
Mhm, mhm.
Because why? Why, if it's at the end of their life? Um, but but even though I can say that easily, right? You're still not getting the closure that you need, and you'll be here for the next how many years. And maybe you want an apology. Maybe you want something to make you feel better. Um, and depending how bad your situation or circumstance was or is, uh, there are there are therapists that
Sure.
specialize, in end of life and relationships and dysfunctional relationships and toxic relationships, and maybe put yourself out on a limb a little bit and maybe have somebody with you, or just get their advice,
Yeah.
yourself before you enter that situation.
Yeah.
There'll be so many mixed emotions going
Sure.
on when you've been through this. You might just also spend time with them, and they think nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
Everything's good, and like life is okay, and I'm dying, or maybe they're bitter because they're dying.
Sure.
And they're not even thinking about how strained the relationship was and the challenges that you had in the past. They're just pissed off that they're dying. So they're going to take it out on you anyway.
Sure.
You know, so many different complex situations that can happen
Yeah.
at this time. And just remember, it's important to have boundaries and take care of yourself, and leave the room if you need to. Spend limited amounts of time. Know that you're going there, and I'm going to be there from 12 to 2, and that's it. I have some
Mhm.
place to be in my car, you know, whatever. But try and find other people in your family or friends that can offer you support with this complicated relationship during this traumatic time in
Yeah.
life, right?
Yes. Yes. Great advice. Yeah.
And then how do you heal afterwards, Lisa? Maybe
Well,
you didn't get the closure in that room at the end of life.
mm,
And how do you deal with that? So, of course, therapy is an option and groups are an option. We talk a lot about that. Um, just understand that the relationship was complex. Give yourself permission to mourn them as much as you want for as long as you want. There's no timeline. We say that all the time, right? And you want to try and break the negative cycle, though. You don't want to linger in that unfinished emotion and feeling that you have for the next 10 or 20, 30 years. You don't want that. So identify your patterns on how you could have been better or they could have been whatever. And then transform maybe the whole situation into some kind of personal growth. Learn from it, grow from it, maybe create new traditions without them here, um, to honor them in some small way. There has to be a time when you did love your father. I don't want to, I'm not going too much into my personal stuff, like Lisa loves to do that, but I won't do that today. But it's a sore topic for me. Um, But if I do think back, I can remember under when I was under 8 years old, I had a pretty good time with him.
Mm.
I had a pretty good life with him. So, and I've come to forgive him through my years and my healing process with things. But when I think about those younger years, I pull out the 3 or 4 positive things that I remember doing. Dancing. He loved music and we dance around the living room. So I pull those things out and dwell on the good memories, right? Because there always are a few, even if you were under 5. I bet you can pull 1 or 2, right?
I want to talk about memorializing our people, okay, our fathers. So I've mentioned it before, but I want to mention it now that I found my 1 year thing that I do every single year on my father's birthday. And so it's not really Father's Day as much as my father's birthday. I found the Barbara Streisand movie Yentl. I have watched it for 40 years now in a row. The movie was dedicated, it was a beautiful, amazing movie, and it's dedicated to her father and all our fathers. That is her dedication line if you wait to the very, very end after all the credits have been run. It's a gorgeous movie, and I feel like it's a really nice tribute to my father. So this year, since it was 40 years, I wrote her a letter. I don't know if she'll ever see it, but I wrote her a letter, and that was really nice to say that it had really touched my life. So that's one thing that I do for my father. My husband, I have other things that I do. Um, I'll tell you the poignant moments and what I call the bittersweet moments. Walking my daughter down the aisle when she got married was very challenging. In a Jewish religion, it's the father and the mother. So it was me and my son who walked her down the aisle. And I was fine. I thought I was fine before that point, but that was really, really hard. Really hard. You're happy that she was getting married and so happy for her and thinking he should be here right now. And he's not here. And so there's many moments like that. There's holidays, there's anniversaries, there's birthdays. Everybody has to figure out how to just keep that person close in some way. And we've talked about food, we've talked about traditions, things that, they enjoyed, like on Father's Day, doing something they would like. That first Father's Day, he already had bought tickets to Special Olympics in Hofstra University, and we went there anyway because he already had those tickets. And so finding those things that still help you remember and that they were something special, is very therapeutic and very helpful. I miss my uncle like crazy. He died last year. I haven't figured out his how to remember him yet, his deal yet. But I just think figuring out something that bring keeps them with you, keeps all around you. I mean, that I do.
Now,
Yeah.
it is a lot tougher, Lisa, in a struggling
Yes,
relationship.
I'm sure it
In
is.
a positive relationship, it's much easier to do
Yeah.
that. Even though it's difficult, it's easier,
Yeah.
right? So in my struggling relationship, that's the last thing I want to do.
Sure.
I don't I hang on to my few little things just to bring me forgiveness and joy. But besides that, I don't celebrate him. I don't do anything like that. Now, however, for my boys and their father, my husband, my favorite time is when we're with other people and other people bring up memories
Yeah.
because you don't think like other people. So if they have their memories of him, that's awesome. So maybe you could do something like that. Have family gatherings, friend gatherings, and maybe just to raise a glass and have a toast. But everybody can share a particular memory because theirs will definitely be different than yours. And there's something so warm and comforting in that.
Yes. Yes.
And you could play their favorite music all
Sure.
night, whether it's Frank Sinatra, whoever it is, and share a couple stories. And that's a really nice way to have that ongoing connection,
You
right?
also do that St. Patrick's thing, and I think that's really lovely. You should
Yeah.
share that. That's really nice.
For
They-
My husband, well, because he passed on St. Patrick's
Yeah,
Day,
I know.
so it's important to always have the corned beef and cabbage and celebrate him and the green beer and the green mashed potatoes because it's something he talked about. His own father passed when he was 16. And through his whole life, he said that when I die and go to heaven, I'm going to have a green beer with my dad. They
Nice.
weren't even Irish, by the way, Italian. So I don't know where that all came from, but you can hang on to little things like that. Um, what else? There's so many things, like you said, the meals, getting together, do some projects with photos, maybe, right? You
Sure.
can pull out a lot of people from back in the day and even today in their phones, don't let me don't even I don't even want to go there. I know so many younger people than me that have a million photos in their phones and they live and die in their phones.
Nice.
So maybe they're not saved, they're definitely not printed.
Mm.
It's so easy to have photo books made up, have printed photos, but back in the day, I mean, I even have in a closet, you do too, Lisa,
I have
25 albums.
151 albums sitting here in my office.
Yeah, I have about 25. That's all I have. But they're big and fat, right? So
Yes, they
you
are.
could go through them and pick out your favorites of them and then put together a brand new album.
Yeah.
Because really you don't need all those extra landscape pictures and those. You don't need all that, but pull out your favorites of them. So any kind of projects, even getting together on the night I was just talking about, where everybody can share a memory. Have a little recorder going, and listening and recording the crowd and the conversations. And how cool would that be,
Yes.
to have for the next generation, you know? So, whether your relationship with your father is positive, which you've had a lot of, Lisa, whether it's challenging, whether it's beforehand, um, picture perfect relationship, or whether it's painfully complicated. We hope that we talked about a couple things today in this brief video that spoke to your heart, um, wherever you are on your journey, right? Our relationships are so different in life, so different. Lisa and I, we do this end of life channel because we have so much experience, but Lisa's experiences have been so different than mine.
Yeah.
Everybody's experience, everybody's relationships are different. So the end result is going to be very different. But in the grand scheme, in the big picture, right? We're all just children in this world that will be going back home one day, and we're here for such a short time, 100 years if we're lucky. So we all grieve. May not be in the same way, it may not be for the same reasons, but you will grieve whether that was a picture perfect relationship or a painful one in
That's
your
right.
life. We all grieve.
I want to mention a book because it is very helpful for people who have lost their parents. I
Okay.
was approached during the time that I was in a bereavement group after my father died. I was approached by a thanatologist who was doing a study on children who had lost their parents. And it was adult children too, of course. And she decided that I was verbal enough that she would interview me. It took about another year until it came out. But it's a wonderful book. It's by Catherine Fair Donnelly, and it's called Recovering from the Loss of a Parent. And our stories are in this book. She divides the book into areas, when your parent first dies, the whole thing, your surviving parent, holidays, dealing with memories. It's a really good book because it has our stories in it. It's all interviews. It's a really great book, and you can still find it on Amazon. And if they're out of it, I went into this thrift bookstore that actually still has some of these books and will find them. So I just encourage you. And people who've lost two parents, there's a book about being, it's called The Orphaned Adult. You feel like you have no more biological links anymore. Very, very good. Very therapeutic as well. So I just want to mention that because knowing that other people and sharing those stories, that's very, very helpful to many of us. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much for those two resources. I didn't even think about that before we started the video. I'm so happy that you did because that's really important. And we learn and we grow and we heal.
We do.
Reading has been a big healer for me in my life. Whether you read or you listen to audiobooks, there's so many out there. You just have to look for which one is right for you.
Yeah.
So remember, be gentle, right? Be gentle with yourself, honor your own feelings through this whole experience, and either create the closure or the celebration that feels genuine and unique to you and your family. Um,
Yeah.
Everybody walks through challenging waters at one point and another. Know that you're definitely not alone.
That's
It
right.
might feel like you're alone, but you're not alone. There are people out there ready and willing and able to support you, but you have to open your heart a little bit and you have to let people in.
Well said.
So, if you have any of your own suggestions or thoughts, we would love to hear your comments. Leave a comment under the video. uh, Lisa and I are just trying here desperately to help our community and now on YouTube, so worldwide.
Yes.
And we want to get the discussion going that we are here for one another and these different challenges in life, like Father's Day and any holiday, that's the common thread that we all have between us.
We also
You
are
know?
open to, we're also open to other subjects and other situations that might come up. We've tried different topics. We even did one on divorce. So, because that was a need that people expressed. So please feel
Yeah,
free to write also what else you might like us to speak about. We also welcome guests that might have a particular topic in mind or an expertise as well. So, yeah, we continue
very
to do
good.
this
Thank
really
you.
important work. We've been at it three
Excellent.
years, Susan. 3 years now.
I know,
Yeah.
unbelievably.
Yeah.
So until the next time, thank you for joining us and take care of your heart.
Yes. All right. Take care.
See you
Bye.
next week, Lisa.
Yep. Bye.